First story, the smiling roommate. I didn't know why I let him move in. His name was Evan, and we'd met only a few weeks before he asked if he could crash at my place. I just signed the lease for the apartment in Auburn Hill, a quiet little town in Michigan. I was alone, and Evan seemed harmless enough. He had this goofy smile that never seemed to fade, no matter the conversation. At first, it wasn't so bad. He was quiet, kept to himself mostly. We had different work schedules, so our paths didn't cross much. But over time, I started noticing things. It started with the way he always smiled, even when we didn't talk. I remember one evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table, my mind wandering as I scrolled through my phone. From the corner of my eye, I saw him in the hallway, leaning against the wall, smiling at nothing. His eyes, though, they were empty, like there was nothing behind them, just a vacant stare. "Hey, Evan, everything all right?" I called out, trying to snap him out of whatever daze he was in. He blinked and turned toward me, still smiling. "Yeah, I'm fine," he said. His voice was too calm, almost rehearsed. I laughed it off, thinking it was just some quirk. But as days went by, it became clear that something wasn't right. He was always there, lurking just out of sight, his smile so wide it made my skin crawl. At night, I could hear him moving around in his room, but he never seemed to sleep. I had to know what was going on. So one night, I decided to confront him. "Evan," I knocked on his door, my hand shaking. "We need to talk." There was no answer. I knocked again, louder this time. The door creaked open, and there he stood, the same vacant smile plastered on his face. "What's up?" he asked in that same eerie, calm tone. "Why don't you ever sleep? What's with the constant smiling?" My voice cracked, but I had to know. I felt trapped. Evan stepped aside, letting me into his room. The walls were covered in drawings. Strange, twisted pictures that looked almost like they were drawn in a hurry. Disturbing, nightmarish images of faces twisted into unnatural smiles, their eyes hollow and staring. And in the center of it all was a picture of me. It was crude, poorly done, but it was unmistakably me. And I was smiling. "What the hell is this?" I whispered, my heart pounding in my chest. Evan stood behind me, still smiling. "You'll understand soon enough," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Suddenly, I felt a chill run down my spine. I turned to face him. The room was empty. The room was empty, and yet I could still hear that damn smile. That same creepy, wide grin echoing in my mind. That night, I couldn't sleep. The silence in the apartment was unbearable. I lay in my bed, listening to the faint sound of footsteps outside my door. It felt like he was getting closer, inching toward me. And then it hit me. Evan hadn't just been smiling for no reason. He was waiting for something. For me. The next morning, I was packing my things. I couldn't take it anymore. I was done. But as I gathered my stuff, I noticed something strange. A letter folded neatly on the kitchen counter. I opened it and my blood ran cold. "Don't leave or you'll never smile again." The handwriting was sloppy, uneven, and then I understood. Evan wasn't just a roommate. He wasn't just some guy with a weird smile. He was something else, something that wanted to trap me, to make me like him. And I'd already made the mistake of noticing. I rushed to the door, but it wouldn't open. I pulled and tugged at the handle, panic rising in my chest. That's when I heard it, a soft chuckle from behind me. Slowly, I turned around. There he was, standing in the doorway, smiling that goddamn smile. "You're not leaving, are you?" he asked, his voice sickly sweet. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing I saw before everything went black was Evan's face, inches from mine, his eyes wide and empty, his smile wider than ever. And then, nothing. When they found me days later, I was still in the apartment. My body was there, but my face was frozen in a smile. The same empty, hollow smile that Evan had worn all along. Second story. The Hollow Guest. I never used to believe in ghosts, but something moved into my apartment that wasn't supposed to be there. It started with small things. My fridge door would be open when I was sure I'd closed it. The faucet dripped, even after I shut it tight. My keys moved from the counter to the floor overnight. Normal things. Things you could explain away. I live alone in a small apartment in Bismarck, North Dakota. It's not fancy, but it's mine. Or at least, I thought it was. One night, I woke up gasping, feeling like someone was sitting on my chest. The room was silent except for my own ragged breathing, but the air felt occupied, like someone was there. I turned on the light. Nothing. I told myself it was just a bad dream. Then I started hearing it. A whisper, just beyond the walls. Muffled like someone was talking in another room. But there was no other room. It was just me. I'd wake up to find my bedroom door open when I always closed it. Shadows stretched wrong against the walls. My reflection in the bathroom mirror lingered half a second too long when I looked away. I convinced myself I was imagining it. Stress, lack of sleep, whatever. But then one night, I saw it. I was brushing my teeth when I felt something watching me. I turned toward the door and nearly dropped my toothbrush. A figure stood in the dark hallway, just past the bathroom light. It wasn't a person. Its shape was wrong. Too tall, too thin, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, like it didn't quite understand how necks were supposed to work. I couldn't see its face, but I knew it was grinning. I stood frozen, the taste of mint turning to acid in my throat. The thing took a step forward, but the second I turned on the hallway light, it was gone. Just gone. I barely slept that night. I left every light in the apartment on, but I still felt it, watching. The next day, I called my landlord, asking if anyone had ever died in the apartment. He hesitated before admitting that years ago, a man had been found dead in my unit. They never figured out how he died. No signs of forced entry, no wounds. He was just hollowed out, like something had drained him from the inside. That night, I locked my bedroom door. I didn't sleep. At some point, I heard slow, deliberate footsteps outside my door. Then, the handle turned. The lock held, but the whispering began. It wasn't words, just noise. Breathy, wet, hungry. I didn't move. I barely breathed. The door rattled once, twice. Then silence. For a long time, nothing happened. I thought it was over until I heard it from inside the room, a whisper right next to my ear. "Let me in!" Third story. The man who wasn't there. I swear I wasn't alone in that apartment. When I moved to Riverside, Oregon, I found a cheap 2-bedroom place near the college. My roommate, Daniel, was already living there. Quiet guy, kind of kept to himself, but that was fine with me. The first night, I heard footsteps in the hallway around 3 a.m. I figured it was Daniel. The next morning, I mentioned it, but he just gave me a weird look. I was asleep, man. Things got stranger. Sometimes I'd hear the fridge open and close when I was in my room. The TV would turn on by itself. A couple of times I swore I saw movement in the corner of my eye. One night, I got home late and saw Daniel sitting on the couch. The lights were off, but the glow of the TV lit his face. "Hey," I mumbled, walking past him into the kitchen. I grabbed a beer, turned back. The couch was empty. Daniel's bedroom door was shut, and from inside, I heard soft snoring. I stood frozen, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. I had just seen him. I knew I had. The next morning, I asked him if he had been up. He frowned. "Dude, I don't sleepwalk. Maybe you were just tired?" I started paying more attention. The noises, the flickers of movement. Sometimes I'd feel something brush past me, but when I turned, nothing was there. One night, I woke up to my bedroom door creaking open. I held my breath. The hallway light was off, but I could make out a figure standing there. Tall, motionless, watching. I bolted upright and turned on my lamp, nothing. After that, I stopped sleeping well. Every little noise made me jolt awake. Then, one evening, I got home from work, and Daniel was in the kitchen, pale as hell. "We need to talk." He pulled out his phone, his hands shaking. "Look at this." It was a security app. He had set up a camera in the living room. The footage showed me sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. But here's the thing. I wasn't home. I had been at work. We stared at each other, the weight of realization sinking in. We weren't alone. That night, we locked ourselves in our rooms. I barely slept. Around 2 a.m., I heard something. A creak, a shuffle, then whispering. Low, unintelligible murmurs outside my door. I gripped my phone ready to call 911, but something told me that wouldn't help. The next morning, Daniel was gone. His room was empty. His clothes, his things, vanished, like he had never been there. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. I went to the landlord, asked if he had seen him. The guy just blinked at me. Who? Daniel, I said. My roommate. The landlord shook his head. You moved in alone. I laughed, but my stomach turned. No, he was here. We split the rent. He showed me the lease. One name, mine. I ran back to the apartment, searching for any proof of Daniel's existence. Nothing. No extra toothbrush, no clothes, no pictures on my phone. He was gone. Or worse, he was never there.